Fire ran freely from one end of this building to the next. It's a complete city block and it is on fire.
Massive fire tore through an apartment complex under construction in Denver tonight. More than 100 firefighters raced to keep the flames contained and out of the surrounding neighborhood at Leetsdale and Forest. A significant evacuation on the southeast side of the city essentially has been lifted after a 3-hour firefight to knock down that ranger. The glow from the monster fire could be seen across the Denver metro area tonight. Its smoke plume even showed up on our weather radar. Denver Fire says as far as they know, no one was injured. I want to show you what it looked like from the high rises of Cherry Creek directly to the west. This is looking southeast as the fire threw an eerie orange cast over Glendale. Video from Laura and Chris Rutter gives us a look from ground level and a better idea why firefighters were so concerned that this was going to jump out of the Harker Heights apartments under construction and into nearby homes and businesses. Evacuation alerts went out just after 7, telling people to leave that area and the Virginia Vale neighborhood to the south. It's more than 20 blocks of single-family homes and apartments and a senior home across the street from the fire. Denver Fire says it's now safe to return. We have team coverage for you tonight, and we begin with 9 News reporter Shalima Maharaj, who's right there at Leetsdale and Forest. And Shalima, what do we know about this enormous building under construction that burned?
Yeah, it is a massive structure. This is a 283-unit complex. Harker Heights was under construction and was supposed to be opening up in May. But of course, that is not going to be the case. You heard about the destruction of that building. I'm going to step out of the way so you can see the firefight that continues. And this is an immense one that required a 5-alarm response. We have firefighters, more than 100 of them here from Aurora. We also have them from South Metro, and of course, the Denver Fire Department itself is here as well. And so they have been attacking one particular area very hard as of late. We've got numerous ladder trucks, but there is one portion of the building where you can continue to see that bright orange flickering, those flames licking at the edge of that building. And that has been an area that they've been concentrating their efforts on for some time now. They, of course, upgraded that response. Earlier on, it was a 3-alarm, but this fire has been so significant that it warranted that additional response. We heard from an official with Denver Fire earlier on about just how destructive this fire has been.
The damage is massive. I am not a building engineer, but there's a lot of fire and it's running completely through that building. As you can see, we've got water pouring in from every angle that we can, trying to knock that fire down. There's a lot of damage.
Now, earlier on when we got here, we ended up seeing a lot of smoke. We saw some embers, a lot of embers blowing, quite a bit of wind. And then we also saw debris that was flying. And we're talking about sizable debris that was falling onto cars, that was falling onto people as they were walking. And it was incredibly difficult to breathe. There were a lot of people on another side of the building that had masks on as well, understandably, because that air quality had just diminished so quickly. And Denver Fire says that was really at the peak of that fire when all of that debris had started to fall. Debris that's about the size of my cell phone or larger that was falling onto the ground, and it was just really difficult to be able to make your way through.
Yeah, Shalima, I know that for folks who were west of the fire, they could see the glow, they could see the smoke plume. For people east of the fire, scary situation. We heard about people with ash falling in their yard at Leetsdale and Quebec, southeast of there, and you can imagine how disorienting that would have been.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us as well, we were checking on each other, myself and my colleague Alex. We were just kind of going back and forth. Are you okay? You breathing all right? Just because it was so dark over there. I mean, we also saw that immense orange plume that you mentioned earlier on in the show. That was just right overhead. And then we also just continued to see a lot of those embers raining down on that particular part of the city that we were in. And as we were walking, we could just kind of see that over the power line, over trees in some of those residential neighborhoods. And you can imagine how ominous truly that looked and how frightening that situation would have been for anybody living in the area and receiving those evacuation notices as we did on our phones as we were coming down here. So a lot of people being told to be on alert and also to maybe consider getting out just because of how precarious the situation had become.
All right, Shalima Maharaj, excellent work for us tonight. Thank you, Shalima. I want to give everybody a live look from Sky 9 that is over the fire. Now, they have been working this from every single angle for the last 3 hours, and yet you can still continue to see that toward the interior of the building, there's visible flames. And the early firefight, as Shalima mentioned, was to keep this thing from getting into nearby buildings. You heard the operations chief for Denver Fire talk about how this was a complete city block that it was burning. If you know this area, this building is north of Leetsdale, and it's kind of one building east of Forest through what would be like the Glencoe and the Great Blocks, and within a building of Hudson on the east side. So that thing is a monster structure that was being built and turned into a monster fire tonight. 9 News reporter Colton Chavez is also on the ground for us. Colton, you've been talking with witnesses and some of the folks who got evacuated.
Yeah, Kyle, and I just wanted to add on top of what you said, in this area, tons of apartment buildings, people all out here on the roads checking out what happened. Earlier tonight when we got here, huge crowds of people. Some of them said they just saw from afar and they wanted to know what was going on. Others say they were evacuated.
Well, right when I got home, we got an alert on our phone that said had to evacuate everything. And you could just see people gathering and just starting to see smoke, light. And all of a sudden you saw the fire hose just start spraying water everywhere. And I go back to our apartment and all of a sudden our power's out. And so just trying to figure out what's going on.
And Kyle, we're even starting to see some of the other impacts from this fire. A building owner right here in the nearby area said he was hoping that these apartments were going to bring more business his way. He says he doesn't feel like that's going to be possible now. Kyle?
Now, all the years of work that went into construction so far. Colt Chavez, thank you for your work tonight. I'll give you another live look at the firefight from Sky 9. Denver Fire saying that this is the largest fire that Denver has seen in years since another construction site fire in Glendale, which Denver Fire covers. That was a couple of years ago, but this fire on par with some of the biggest fires that Denver has seen in the last 20 years, going back to a very large fire in Glendale that I want to say was 2013, 2014. There was also the Emerson Street fire in which there was a death a couple of years ago in Denver. But this is the size of firefight that this city rarely sees, and some exceptional work by Denver Fire with help from South Metro and Aurora tonight to get this thing under control. We'll continue to update this breaking story on air as well as on 9news.com. And remind you can always get the latest information on the 9 News app as well. That's free to download in the Apple and Google Play stores.